does muscle meat have all the nutrients we need? Do we need to eat nose to tail? Not necessarily. It depends how deficient you are. If you're deficient, you've come in from uh, let's say a vegan diet or a plant-based diet that tends to have very little animal foods in it, and you've been doing it for uh, possibly at least 6 months to a year or more, you will have sustained some level of deficiencies. So it may be a good idea to consume some organ meats for a period of time to fix up the deficiencies. So there's good evidence in that. Terry Walls, who had multiple sclerosis, um, things like that, and couldn't get out of her what do you call those zero G seats or whatever that she used to sit in, and she had to wheelchair herself around. Now she's on bikes doing marathons or cycling and stuff like that. Um, yeah. So I mean, what did she do? She ate organ meats quite a lot to get a lot of nutrient density. She doesn't do that as much now. So that really helped because she was highly deficient in nutrients. And maybe genetically she was predisposed, but not like hardwired, where it's much more difficult to turn off those or downregulate those genes. And so she responded quite well to a dietary intervention of increasing the nutrient density. But somebody who's fairly healthy, doing pretty well, nah, you can get everything you need from muscle meat. The body will take all the amino acids and actually create the essential amino acids, anything you like, build, construct enzymes and whatever else. And there's enough cofactors in those animal foods. What I usually encourage people to do is to vary their, like eat different varied animal foods. You're going to get much better nutrient profile, all that. So obviously people will say, well, Harry, don't you recommend taurine to regulate ions and even that research you talk about in the Gaza Strip, where they were giving the young girls taurine supplementation to sort out their anemia, and it sort of did, yes, because taurine has that little magical thing to do in the kidneys where it can actually either force the excretion, or through the gallbladder, force the excretion out of certain ions, certain metals, certain, minerals, or reabsorption of others. It's homeostasis of a lot of the stuff. And so you can get away with less in a sense because of the taurine in the animal food if you eat sufficient animal food. So if you undereat protein, then you're going to have problems. But if you're eating about 25 to 30%, you should get enough, in particular 30%. I usually recommend around 30%. Then you should get enough to basically regulate your ions and a whole lot of other things. And also remember the B vitamins, you get more than enough. And they too tend to stay in the system for about 3 days. Many people on carbohydrate metabolism that actually burn through B vitamins and stuff like that. It's the reason why when people I say you had a little, let's say we're knocking down a few drinks, what are you through your detox pathways in your liver? What are you using? You're burning through choline and B vitamins. You're burning through them like there's no tomorrow. If you take some B vitamins, you don't get a hangover the next day. Voila, voila. Because you've cleared out the toxins much more efficiently. And so it has less of an effect. If you've got less B vitamins, Well, there again, eating a species appropriate diet will get the stuff. But I usually say to people, vary. Add some eggs, eat different types of meats as well. Even though, yes, I know thiamine, we only need half of the amount compared to somebody on a carbohydrate diet. Because of the enzyme pathways, you only need half energy production from either protein, which we don't use unless you're starving, or fatty acids. There is cases where, I mean, Elliot's done with some people, even though I'm a bit critical of, you know, sort of a blanket statement that thiamine is great for everyone. There are cases where certain people have certain severe deficiencies and and it seems to fix their problems. Mega dose for a short period of time. Or as I say to other people on the carnivore diet, you can eat a bit more tuna and piggy and get the extra thiamine because it's one of the best sources, especially piggy. You don't, if you're nutrient deficient, yes, those sort of things. But I think that, if somebody, as I've said, also you can do like a vegetarian type approach. Um, and like I call it a carnivore, vegetarian carnivore diet, and which is pretty much fish, crustaceans, eggs, and dairy sort of thing. So there are options for all sorts of people, whatever floats your boat and stuff like that. And you can get quite a lot of nutrition. Crustaceans have a lot of minerals. But then again, people can say, well, if you don't need as much minerals, what's going to happen? Well, your kidneys will excrete them if everything is working properly. So that's what they're supposed to do. I'm, I'm sort of on when it comes to certain nutrition, I still tell people, what did your ancestors consume? It's really important. That's where the genetics come in. It's a bit like myself, calcium, one of those 24%. So a muscle meat only diet for me would not work. If I did a muscle meat diet only, I would get small levels of arrhythmias and I would get small amounts of my heart rate goes up. So my heart rate, I've shown you guys before, when I'm exercising, it can be down to the mid 45 and all that, or 50. And usually if I'm not exercising, it sort of sits between 50 and 60. The moment I take out calcium, like I go dairy free, my serum calcium levels, because of my genetics, I can't absorb as well from the animal foods, the meat. And my heart rate goes up to between 70 and 90. So or sorry, 80 or 90. I know quite clear that I have a calcium genetic issue, and I found it in my genetics, the 23andMe information. So there will be, for proportion of the population, like the Irish with their carotenoid conversion. See, a lot of us can convert carotenoids very well. You can, from the animal fats, there's, grass-fed animal fats will have carotenoids. That's why it's yellowy. It's not only the DHA, the omega 3s, but it also the carotenoids that give it that yellowy flavor, from white to the more yellowy flavor. But if you don't have, so if most people from Africa and elsewhere can convert carotenoids that comes from grass easy. I have a 32% reduction, and Irish can have massively up to 80 plus, depending on, because there are some secondary genes as well that are playing a role. So if you take all that, some can be up to 90%. that means when they eat a lot of, they go plant-based, their skin goes orange, because they just cannot deal with the carotenoids. Their body's trying to excrete it from every bloody orifice and get rid of it. So it's really important to realize these sort of things when it comes to it. So a steak-only diet would be fine for up to 70 odd percent of the population. There's probably about 30% for a whole lot of reasons, genetic reasons in the last 10,000 years of certain adaptations and all that, that it may not be sufficient. So we need to make sure we've got that proviso, that it's quite clear for the majority of carnivores to state that muscle meat is all you need is a valid thing, excluding people that have genetically been affected in the last 10,000 years. So in terms of, for somebody to argue like that our species have been consuming primarily muscle meats for thousands of years, that's true. I accept that completely, and I agree. But to state that there aren't exceptions in the last 10,000 years in the modern era because of certain adaptations to consuming certain types of animal foods that have, or not enough of certain animal foods that has changed the requirements, genetic requirements for certain substances, we need to be honest about that as well. And so most people do know when they take out certain things they don't feel as good. So they haven't checked their genetics, but there's definitely something not working properly. And so through anecdotes, they realize, and sometimes they go through to the wrong things. They start trying to put carbs in rather crap stuff like that to sort of mask the issue, because, okay, you change some of the dynamics, or you hold on to more, if you're in a low carb state, you can lose more electrolytes unless you've got enough taurine. But if you're not supplementing taurine and you're under eating protein and then you're eating carbs to sort of force the insulin effect to hold on to electrolytes, you're deceiving yourself thinking that that's fixing your problem. It's masking your problem. That's all it's doing. But when you eliminate, you understand that you may need certain substance, other animal foods that your ancestors have adapted to, and you bring those in, the problem goes away. And that's how you should deal with a problem, in the appropriate ancestral way, not in some dodgy way like, Saladino and others sort of promote to mask those symptoms.